and we can sit and play the blame game. I do believe the infrastructure doesn't help. However, I do believe manufacturers, and I've seen one manufacturer this morning launching a new vehicle with a 435-mile range. I feel like that 500, that's the magic number. I think once we get between 450 and 500-mile range, some of the range anxiety and the inconvenience, that's how customers deem it, will start to disappear.
Hi guys, welcome back to The Armchair Show. I'm your host Mark Ellis and I'm joined today by Darren Bradford, who is the MD of RJTK. How are you doing, Darren?
Good, thank you, Mark.
Not your first time in the studio?
No, I was here earlier this year.
Yeah, and well, a lot's happened since then, I'm sure. But for those who don't know, do you want to give us a very quick kind of potted history of your journey into the industry?
Absolutely, from the early days.
Go as early as you want to, yeah.
As early as I want to. Okay, so back in the mid-90s, I started in the industry back at a Vauxhall dealership in Kent. Still there today, actually, in a small town called Gravesend, as a car cleaner, mainly doing service and loan cars. That led on to some driving, and I've always been pretty driven and wanted to expand my career, so I asked to explore the world of car valeting for the sales department. I did that for a while, then went into some vehicle rental receptionist roles, where I became customer facing for the first time, and then went on to service reception, did a few months there. Really wanted to expand my career. Watched the sales team walking in daily, day in, day out, talking about the great holidays they had and the new sofas they brought and technology, and I thought, I really want a bit of that. I started a family really young, at the age of 20, and I believe that's what's been the core driver behind me pushing myself throughout my career, and that's my children. I went to my dealer principal at the time, and I said to him, can I ever go in sales? And he said, absolutely not. You'll scare customers away. So
That's reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just couldn't get through that brick wall. A job came up at another dealer, a Ford dealer, about 10 miles down the road, for, I can't remember the title of it back then, but we called them site coordinators. So at the time it was looking after the used car pitch, pricing, preparation. We wasn't as hot on the web back then, so we did do web images, but they wasn't as out there as they are today, with all the imagery and videos we have to do today for consumers. And that's pretty much where I started my sales career. Again, hit a bit of a brick wall, got told I was a little bit intimidating and customers might scare them off, but I convinced my general sales manager at the time, if I work weekends free of charge, and I proved to sell vehicles and look after customers, that he'd give me the opportunity, and that's where it began. So I went in as a trainee on Saturday at midday. I got changed out of my workwear into a shirt and tie and started selling vehicles on a Saturday and Sunday. That went on for several months, about 4 or 5 months, before he acknowledged, actually, you're not too bad at this, Bradford.
Not too scary.
Yeah, you're not too scary. Customers actually like you. So I was then given a full-time sales executive's role. And then that's led on from pretty much the year 2000 throughout my career, where I went from there to being a new car sales controller after doing a short stint for long-term sickness cover for a business manager. And then my youngest daughter was on the way, and I decided we needed a change of scenery. I was living down in southeast London and Kent back then, and my mother lived in Cambridgeshire, so that was the move to the Cambridgeshire-Lincolnshire border, really, back in 2003. And I just continued my career, sales executive, business manager, had a break from dealer for a while, done some consultancy with regards to HR, implementing finance and funding for independent dealers, and then decided I was fed up with driving up and down the motorway between dealers, and I went back into the dealer network as general sales manager in 2009, and worked my way up to group general sales manager, and from there general manager, responsible for several sites, and then managing director in 2019 for Drayton Motors Kia, and Robin Wilson gave me the pleasure of becoming group managing director in January this year, covering all of RJTK automotive sites. And here we are today, Mark.
Here you are. What a journey. And actually, it's quite a linear journey, isn't it? Because we've had a few people on this podcast who don't have that sort of journey. They've started in a completely different industry,
Yeah.
and kind of fallen into automotive, whereas you've been there right from the start. In terms of what you do now, this might sound like a daft question, but I think for people who are watching this who want to get into the industry or are maybe making that same way up themselves, up the ladder, how different is your day to day compared to what you do now to what you were doing when you were doing the kind of sales manager role?
Wow, it's completely different, and I think that's what again keeps the passion and love for the job, and keeps you interested. It's not easy. You have to keep up to date with news, legislation, on top of all the manufacturer bulletins. You know, it's a fast-moving industry. Things change at the click of the fingers, whether that be product recalls or consumer offers to push the market along. You know, you're dealing 1 minute, you're dealing with a financial deposit allowance on a vehicle that's perhaps being pushed by a manufacturer, to the next your phone ringing. It could be a member of staff that has had a really good day, and you're having a conversation about the success story there. And in some cases, unfortunately, in this day and age, someone that's slightly distressed and needs some help and support. It's very varied. I do go home and I think, wow, what a day. It's almost like doing a month-long journey in a day some days. But it's about keeping that structure and making sure no matter what obstructions or hazards are thrown out there, or challenges, I would say, that's the right word, challenges are thrown in front of you, you still get back on track. A bit like the sales process, really. Customer may come in and say, what's my car worth? You know, so many people now scarp and run. Oh my God, he wants a price for his car. Well, that's fine. Take a seat, sir. We'll see how much your car's worth. As long as we go back to the initial stage of taking them through the process so that we gain the correct information to deliver the right customer service and put the right deal in front of the customer, it's no different to the position I'm in today.
Why do you think people scarper with that question? Because that's is there something that's happened in the last few years that has caused that, or is it a change in the generation that's coming into the industry?
I think a lot of it's hearsay. We live in and around media all day, every day nowadays. You know, I hear staff saying, you know, my morning session on Facebook, you know, whilst eating my breakfast before I come to work, and I normally have 10 minutes to wind down on social media before I go to bed, and we've got this news pumped at us 24/7, and some of it is factual, some of it's opinionated, and it's almost like we're too concerned about what else is happening in the marketplace. So we're scared of the likes of disruptors, We Buy Any Car and likes. They may have offered them a really good price, a lot better than we have. Well, it's all about focusing on here and now. If I deliver an absolutely outstanding customer service to this person, this human being sat in front of me, and I get them to understand why I may be devaluing their car slightly by showing them and having a conversation even about how that supermarket scuff happened, it brings people down to reality and makes them feel like they're in comfortable hands with a knowledgeable person, they're being looked after, and sometimes they won't even venture off, go shopping anywhere else. You know, they won't even entertain the idea of valuing their car online anywhere else, because I've dealt with Darren at Wilson & Co. He's a great guy, he really looked after me. The deal he's put in front of me is reasonable. He's taken on board all of my requirements. It's about delivering that great customer service nowadays. That's worth a lot more money.
Yeah, it's external factors, like you say, isn't it? It's worrying about the past, or like you say, keeping an eye on social media, seeing what the competition is doing. As you say, it's not about that. It's more about what's in front of you.
Absolutely.
What do you think you guys do particularly well to counter these challenges? Is there anything in particular that springs to mind that you do that doesn't get rid of these challenges, because they're always there, but is there any way you meet them in particular?
I think the biggest thing, or the thing we do the best, is we acknowledge and understand that customer has nowadays absolutely unlimited freedom. They're in control. They can do what they want when they want, 24/7 from a mobile phone. We accept that that's the case, and it's about almost acknowledging that with the customer when they raise it, instead of trying to brush it under the carpet and move on. Customer says, I've been on We Buy Any Car or another platform and valued my vehicle. Okay, that's great. Was it a price that you liked? Yes, it was. So if I match that today, is that something where we'd be moving forward with on your new purchase? It's about asking the questions. Don't be afraid of asking those questions. When we get to presenting the figures to a customer, they'll soon tell you if you're wrong, and it's about explaining, when you've done the online appraisal, did you mark down the fact that, you've said it's got full history, but now you've told me your uncle does it in his garage, so he hasn't stamped the book. Did you do that, or did you mark it with full service history? Because when you take it to the evaluation centre, they will devalue the vehicle because you've misdescribed it, rightfully so. It's about communication, and we're not perfect. We all get customer complaints around the industry. You can't please everyone, but it's about making sure that we're clear and transparent with customers as much as we can be. Just be human. Just be us.
We're all humans, aren't we?
Yeah.
On that note, do you think what are the biggest misconceptions about the industry? If you're talking to friends or family, we all have this where we try and describe our jobs, and they'll have a preconceived idea of what it's all about. Is there anything is that different now, do you think, for this industry?
In some instances, yes, it is different. I think when I first started selling car sales, people were tarred with the brush of, you're a rip-off merchant, you're out for one thing only. Once you've got my money, you're not interested. That needle has massively moved now, and actually, I think it's all about reassurance and reassuring customers what we can deliver after they've taken the vehicle, rather than the actual deal. That adds so much value. Personally, with regards to the industry, I've got family that are not in the industry. They all think I live in the Wolf of Wall Street. They're convinced it's a multi-billion-pound industry where we're just rolling around in baths of pound notes. They don't understand the concept or commercial sense of the small margins we have to deal with. And you get something go wrong that's costly, it could ruin your month or maybe your year at a single dealer site.
Are there any stories of that, without going into detail, that you can or any instances that have been that crucial that you can talk about?
It's a multitude of things, let's be real. Cars are like human beings. They're unpredictable. Things can go wrong. And I don't believe there's such a thing as a bad car anymore. They're all really well made. are built to last. But things do go wrong, and in most cases, some form or another, you'll have a manufacturer or an insurance-based warranty that protects you in those areas for the failure of an engine, which nowadays can be tens of thousands of pounds, depending on the vehicle. But it's about making sure that we're compliant, first of all. That's very important nowadays. Our biggest risk nowadays is making sure that we're compliant. And when I say compliant, not just with EFCA and consumer duty and customers' rights, but with our partners that we work with. So we are spending their money on warranty. It's making sure that we have covered every part of the process to make sure that it's a valid warranty claim. And I'm proud to say that all the audits I've had over the years have pretty much been close to squeaky clean, because that's the culture we have. It's about, again, it comes back, Mark, to communication and transparency. If you've got factual evidence of, let's take a customer warranty claim of why it's not covered, perhaps because of the maintenance schedule's not been kept to, or it's been adapted for certain other uses, then we shouldn't be afraid to sit down with that customer, but sit down. Don't be confrontational, yeah? So, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we do have an issue here. This is the issue. Lay out the facts. However, it's about meeting them in the middle, because we want to retain customers. So there's no point putting a brick wall up. That's not covered, regardless of where they purchased a car. Because as far as I'm concerned, they come in for a warranty claim. That customer's on our database. We're going to ask them next time the service and MOT is due, would they like to book in? When they're in, the sales team are going to talk to them and hopefully show them our product and sell them a vehicle. It's about meeting them in the middle and saying to them, this is what I can do for you. We can do something for almost anyone.
And taking all this into account, because there's been so much change, and like you say, the perception of the industry is definitely changing as well in the same respect, and also keeping in mind how quickly technology is moving with things like AI, and we can't sit here and talk about that. We'll probably be here all day. But what do you think? This is looking relatively far ahead, although it will be here before we know it. What do you think the dealership of 2030, for instance, would look like?
I do think about that.
I bet you
quite
do.
a lot.
It's your job.
Quite a lot. Absolutely. I think about that a lot. And, as far as I'm concerned, I've got 25 years left of me yet of my career. So I do think forward. I think, wow, where was I 25 years ago to where it is today? Where will we be? I think at the minute we're in a bit of a middle ground, because we're almost transitioning from franchise dealer model with some brands to the agency model. Do I feel that will adapt before the partners we work with get to that stage? I do. The electrification of vehicles is really tough. The industry, the consumers, everyone's struggling with transitioning from the ICE vehicles over to EVs. And we can sit and play the blame game. I do believe the infrastructure doesn't help. However, I do believe manufacturers, and I've seen one manufacturer this morning launching a new vehicle with a 435-mile range. I feel like that 500, that's the magic number. I think once we get between 450 and 500-mile range, some of the range anxiety and the inconvenience, that's how customers deem it, will start to disappear. We're definitely going that way. Government says we're hitting certain CO2 levels by certain stages over the next 25 years, and I agree that that's the right way forward. It's just, how do we get from today to then? It's going to be interesting times, and I truly believe that standard ICE vehicles that are being registered today will retain value for a long time, because there will be some people that will stand their ground and protest, I'm not switching to electric, I will stay in a standard ICE vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, and I can't answer that in any clean, simple way.
It's really hard, isn't it? I think even looking 12 months or 2 years ahead is tricky, isn't it? I think
Absolutely.
just the pace of change, really. What would you say to someone who's thinking about coming into the industry? What should they be aware of?
I'm glad you asked me that question, Mark, because I was driving here earlier and I thought to myself, it's a fantastic industry in many different ways. Whether you want to be customer focused, more analytical, you want to work your way to a part of the industry that's quite strategic and looking forward into future products, marketing. There's so many different variations and different ways you can enter the automotive sector. I don't feel like we promote it enough within schools, colleges, universities. When I was at school, we pretty much talked about several sectors, and most of them were the public sector. They were a fireman, a policeman, a bin man. Those were the sort of careers that we looked at, and your building trades, which when I first left school was something I ventured into, a bit in carpentry and joinery. I think we need to promote the great stuff about the industry more to more people, because I say to my own children what a great career I've built by being in this industry. I've met some amazing people who've taught me loads. There's just one thing we shouldn't take for granted, and that is in any sector really, but every day is a school day.
Yep.
So every single day I get out of bed, I truly believe I'm going to learn something today. So every day is a school day, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It's a tough job. It is pressurised because we're target-driven. Can that turn into stress? Yes. But it's about making sure that you follow recommendations and advice from certain outside bodies that give you coping mechanisms. And it's about trying to get the best work-life balance you can get from the industry. That is a difficult one because, again, the job does demand a lot of time and effort, and if you want to strive to be the best, you basically get out what you put in.
Yeah, and it is that education element, isn't it? Because my guess really is that I think kids probably are, and even in university, etc., I think people are being taught the stuff that relates to the automotive industry as it is now, but what probably isn't happening is the link isn't being made between those things like marketing, all the more modern subjects and interests that kids have.
Yeah.
The link isn't being made between those necessarily and industries like this one. I think that's the challenge, isn't it? And in fairness, that link has never really been there, has it? If you were going into marketing, perhaps you wouldn't think automatically automotive.
You wouldn't know.
But now it's such an obvious, it's far more obvious, obviously for people that come on this podcast. It's how that I don't know. Have you got any ideas how this can happen?
I think if we put it on the list of considerations, that would help. First of all, it's like, for example, you said marketing. Let's look at accounting, finance.
Yeah.
Most of my friends that have gone into the accounts world. End up going to work for a firm of chartered accountants, and they're dealing with all different businesses, or pretty much go self-employed, or look at, again, the NHS, the police, etc. Them sort of areas. We need accountants. We need accountants to run our business. So where do we put in big flashing lights? If you're an accountant and you want a career in the automotive world, we're here. I think putting us on the list of consideration is something that's going to bring more people into the industry, not as a job, as a career, because it is a career.
Yeah. Well, hopefully someone's watching this. It's why we do these podcasts. It's to raise awareness of this sort of stuff. We've run out of time, Darren. Unfortunately, we could carry on talking about that. And it goes so quickly, doesn't it?
Really fast.
But it's not the last time we'll have you on at all. So we'll have you back.
Brilliant.
But thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Armchair Marketing.